One is the ability to meet people's core needs. Great leaders tend to meet a need for respect, a need for affirmation, a need for challenge. So there's this kind of sensitivity that great leaders have to what motivates people, what really is the things that fuel them and inspire them. And they recognize that not just on a global basis, but even on an individual basis. The other thing that defines great leadership is the first level, I always say, to great leadership is being a great team member, an engaged and empowered team player. And to do that, that bar is set pretty high. I always say that great team members are the ones that won't be voted off the island first if they were on a survivor game. And I wonder oftentimes how many leaders would get voted off right away. And they get away with things because they're the boss as opposed to having really excelled at being a strong team member. And what I find makes a great strong team member is strong relational skills. Leaders oftentimes will find themselves into jobs because of their intellect and their hard work. And then they derail because of their weak relational skills and emotional intelligence. They don't see it. Now, other people might see it, that they want to get validated or be seen or approved or have more power or any number of things that they're looking for. But that's the way leaders tend to derail. What are some of the pitfalls, or what causes leaders to implode? I'm one of the experts in this area. I think I've committed all the mistakes that you could in this whole arena of what I call smart people doing really stupid things. And I challenge leaders to say, hey, have you done this really stupid thing? But what causes them to implode, I find oftentimes, is that they don't know what they're motivated by. They're not, oftentimes leaders are not motivated by their core values. They're motivated more by meeting a core need that's missing inside them. And their attempt to meet that need oftentimes has them pursue strategies that end up being really ill-fated ones. So, for example, for me, I hired a guy one time at a very senior level. I hired him in a week, and every blind spot that I could possibly run into, I did during that hiring process. But I was on a trajectory at that point to really validate myself, to be seen and to be approved. And part of the thing I did was I hired a guy whose approval I sought. And I realized as I got walking around the office with this guy that I had hired somebody that actually reminded me of my dad in some ways. And so this need for approval was running really deep. In other words, I couldn't identify that was going on. But I wasn't at that moment, I wasn't being driven by the values by which I stood by and which I had built the company around, frankly. So that's what I find creates this implosion. So oftentimes a leader is motivated by something that is not apparent to them, but it is really fueling them. I've got this theory that you don't learn much from your successes after age 30. You really learn from your failures. And I realized this, I was about 36. I got fired from the top job at this public company that I was running. And the main reason I got fired was a disagreement over whether the company should be sold or not. Now, I thought the company was ripe to be sold for a number of reasons that were happening in our industry. The chairman in particular said, this company's worth, 4 or 5 times what I thought it was worth and what I thought we could get for it. So, but I realized in the process of going back and forth, I actually didn't have a whole lot of discussions early on with the board about my particular ideas about selling it, because they were so resistant to it, I decided I would go out, shop it a little bit, and kind of be courted by some potential buyers. And then I would take that proposal to the board, and I'd say, here's something concrete. They fired me before I could do that. In hindsight, that's exactly what should have happened. The company ended up getting sold for a fraction of what it was even trading for at that time, let alone the premium that we would have gotten at the time. The life lesson, the leadership lesson, is that leaders often forget to sell the most important people. In fact, they sell everybody but their inner circle. They don't think that at that point, at that level, that they're really on a team, because they're the leader. And I could sell ice to Eskimos. I sold bondholders, stockholders, companies that we ultimately bought. And when it came right down to it, I assumed that I didn't have to sell those people in my inner circle. I assumed I delivered the goods for 7 years. I'd built this company from scratch to being worth, $400 million. So one of the big mistakes that I noticed, that either a leader doesn't define who their inner circle is, or they forget to sell their inner circle. They'll sell bankers and they'll schmooze everybody else. But there's a number of blocks, most of which are around the feeling of, I don't really need to sell these guys. They should give me the benefit of the doubt. So one major lesson that I learned from that experience is sell your inner circle.